These three reports that I'm going to be reading are actually all from the same person. It is a woman who has had multiple experiences in different states. And I'm just going to go ahead and read them starting from the one that's furthest back to the most recent. The first one was in 1973 or 1974. It looks like it's one of those ones that you don't quite remember what year, but it was summertime and it was at Glacier National Park in Montana. I was camping alone about 4 miles in a backcountry campground. When I got there at dusk, I was feeling nervous due to the time of day, the sense of isolation I felt, and that only one other tent was there, about 200 feet away maybe. I put up my tent quickly, then took a short walk on the prairie part, not in the woods. This site was in a clearing with a bald hill behind it and a grass valley. I felt I'd made a mistake in coming and went to bed as soon as the dark started to come. Sometime in the middle of the night, I heard the scariest noise of my life. It sounded like a large, thick tree breaking in half, right next to my tent. I imagined it as a giant elephant stepping on a large tree and bringing it down. I could hear it crunching. I was so terrified that somehow I willed myself back to sleep instantly, thinking about how fear draws, and in Montana your thought is usually grizzlies. How I accomplished that I'll never know. Never been so scared in my life. The next day I asked the couple, did they hear it? No, they didn't. I've since learned that Bigfoots can make people hear sounds that aren't there or smell things that aren't there. They have some powers humans don't have, psychic powers. They can stop engines, they can communicate telepathically, but also they will often break a tree in half with their hands, and maybe just did that to scare me. A Bigfoot practical joke, maybe? What else could it have been? There was no evidence in the morning of any tree anywhere nearby nor wood chips. And she goes on. 1976. Mount Hood Forest and the paved road that goes up through it. It was a Saturday night, and I was coming back to my Forest Service district compound in the Mount Hood Forest, where I worked that summer from spending the day in Portland. I was just below where the lodge to Mount Hood is, the Timberline Lodge, maybe 2 to 3 miles before it. I've since learned that Mount Hood is a huge spot for 100 plus years for Bigfoots, maybe 200 years. The Indians named trails up on Mount Hood for them. I was the only one on the road, and it was very dark since I was in the middle of the forest with tall trees and no streetlights. I saw something at about 200 to 250 feet in front of me, which looked like a naked man running from the woods on the right side of the 2-lane road in the woods onto the left side of the road. I had only had 2 beers that night and was not under any influence of altered perceptions. I have always wondered for years since then if I'd seen a ghost, but now I think it may have been a white or light-colored Bigfoot, either an old one or an albino. Both have been seen by others, and I've read a few reports on all white ones. On that one, my friend, I would say you might have just seen an Oregon hippie running through the woods. Naked men running through the woods? I don't know about 1976, since I wasn't even alive then, but that sounds like an Oregon thing. Also sounds like a California thing. But definitely, I think the chances of a naked man running through the woods in Oregon is quite high. And her last encounter was in Old Fort, North Carolina, November 2014. I went up to someone's driveway who has Bigfoots living in the national forest next to him, not far from his house at the top of the mountain. He's written a book on it, actually 2 of them, so that's how I learned of him and got in touch with him. He lives at the top of the mountain adjoining the Pisgah Forest in the Blue Ridge mountain chain and sees and hears them all the time for 21 years straight. I was going over there from an hour away to talk to him, but without his knowing I was coming, since he would never answer his phone, and we played phone tag over several weeks. I was leaving the state soon and needed to try and connect with him before doing so. I was unable to get up his road. Steepest mountain road I've ever been on, so steep that my wheels just spun. I was too run down in aerobic heart health right then to walk up either, so I was about to leave a note on his truck before leaving. It was dusk and dark was beginning to settle in, which made me a little nervous. It's very remote there, and no one else lives close by. I am a very thin and non-muscular female pushing 70 years old. I got out to walk over to his truck with my note when I heard it. It sounded a bit like an owl, but not an owl, much deeper and bigger sound. It scared the heck out of me. I know most animal sounds, so I jumped back in my van and never left the note. Just hauled butt, as they say in Florida. She actually put the A word, but I'm going to tidy that up. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing these 3 encounters that she had. Well, I would say maybe 2.5 possibility. I mean, the naked running man, that one's kind of up in the air. I don't know, if somebody said they saw a naked man running in the woods in like Wisconsin, I'd probably say, okay, maybe, but that's Oregon. As for the other ones, the sounds at Glacier Park, Montana, from the description of where she was at, it was in a clearing with a bald hill behind it in a grassy valley, and that loud crunching noise, that sounds really interesting. And then also the owl sound. Now, mind you, these were all in different parts of the U.S., so I thought it was pretty interesting that she had a few odd things. No Class A's in here, unless the naked man turns out to be Bigfoot. I did find her encounters, all 3 of them, pretty dang interesting. Well, let us know in the comments below what you think, and if you have an encounter that you want to share, there will be a link in the description. You can always go ahead and go to that and put it up on our page, and then we can get that added to the database, and I'll work on getting them read up on here. And I apologize for a little bit of the rough voice. I am getting over a little bit of a cold, and I guess it's a little rougher than I thought it would be. But I'll see you guys down in the comments below. Bye!